Well, the most important thing right now is to get rid of the federal EV mandate, which I know we've talked about a few times, but this is having a direct impact on the industry today.
We have a lot to get into, so let's waste no time. Just when you thought Doug Ford couldn't get any worse, he somehow does.
It's refreshing to some of us that have been around this table for some time to have a prime minister that has our backs, that are out there. He's a great community builder, and he's a brilliant businessman. And I'm confident that he's going to take the business approach to our federal government that we haven't seen for a long time.
My God, Doug, it sounds like your elbows up, mouth open for him. So what exactly has Carney done? Am I missing something? He got rid of all the carbon taxes, got rid of Bill C-69 and 48, stopped mass immigration, and posted a balanced budget. Oh wait, he actually did none of that. And they are currently on vacation, having these air quotations fruitful talks. We also have the president and CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association talking about the future of the vehicle manufacturing industry.
You know, Brian Kingston, there is this argument emerging from the First Ministers that even if the sectoral tariffs don't completely go away, Canada is still in a better position with the U.S. relative to everybody else. But for those sectoral, those sectors that are hit, like yours, that's pretty cold comfort. I mean, what's your mood with 10 days to go on this?
Yeah, look, of course it's good to be in a relatively better position than other countries, but at the end of the day, when you have investment that comes into the Canadian market, you are sending product to the U.S. and therefore you're competing with U.S. footprints. So if we have permanent tariffs that make it uncompetitive to build cars and ship them to the States, that is a problem long-term for the industry. That said, it puts the onus on government. We have to be ultra-competitive as a country, and those have been some of the conversations that premiers have been having. We have to find other ways to make the case for Canada if we're going to be in a permanently tariffed scenario.
It's going to be very hard to remain competitive when the current Liberal government wants to push an EV mandate and nobody wants to buy EVs.
So, Flavio Volpe, I read some comments by you about the future of the Windsor plants, the future of the Brampton plants, either shut down entirely or reduced weeks and reduced hours, and you think they won't survive if the tariffs persist.
Yeah, those are two very good examples of automaker that's been here 100 years and really supports the local suppliers. You know, there might be 3,000 workers at a plant or 9,000 at the suppliers that feed it. The idea of, well, look, is there a tariff level we can live with? You know, you're dealing with, in that case, Stellantis, a globally competitive company. It's got to balance its interests around the world. In the market that those two plants serve, they've been hit with a tariff that makes the product uncompetitive. And what I said was that company will survive, it'll figure things out. But those two plants won't.
Right.
And those two plants, it wasn't too long ago that company was the #1 producer of vehicles and volume in this country. Good product, just launched, and just ran into the White House. And, you know, people like to make blanket statements, you know, we can live with something. Well, every one of those plants that gets hurt, there's probably 2-3 dozen supplier plants that no longer have business, and they don't come back.
So you know, Brian Kingston, your point that it's up to government to help find a way to make things competitive. Like we saw General Motors recently announced $4 billion to invest in expansion in the U.S., partly because of the tariffs, right? So this speaks to the challenge that exists there. What can Mark Carney and the premiers do to offset something like this?
Well, the most important thing right now is to get rid of the federal EV mandate, which I know we've talked about a few times, but this is having a direct impact on the industry today. Auto manufacturers that build cars here that employ Canadians are being forced to buy credits, to restrict their sale of gas-powered vehicles in this country, all to hit arbitrary sales targets. We should not be inflicting that sort of damage on the industry when we're dealing with a much bigger challenge, which is this tariff situation and the threat that the Americans are posing to the industry.
But if the EV mandate goes away and the tariff persists, there's still a competitive disadvantage there, right?
Absolutely, and the reality is no amount of government support will offset access to the world's largest automotive market. You know, there is no such thing as diversifying our industry away to other markets. We have to find some sort of mutually beneficial solution to this ongoing tariff challenge so that the industry can continue to thrive. If we don't have that, the case for building in Canada becomes extremely challenging.
And there you finally hear it.
The reality is no amount of government support will offset access to the world's largest automotive market. You know, there is no such thing as diversifying our industry away to other markets.
We cannot diversify our trade with this industry. It will not survive. It's just that simple. Melanie Joly, Mark Carney, the entire Liberal platform has been telling us time and time again, we'll diversify our trade. We'll go elsewhere. We won't deal with the US. Well, that is just simply something we can't do, specifically when it comes to the auto industry. And now we are hearing it from the President and CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. I really don't think Doug Ford has been paying attention to what's going on.
We need to make sure we match tariff by tariff, dollar for dollar, and hit them back as hard as we possibly can. There's one thing President Trump understands, is strength. He doesn't understand or appreciate weakness. He will roll over us like a cement roller if you show an ounce of weakness with the president, in my opinion.
And what happened when we tried to implement the digital service tax as a position of strength? You tell me. And we even have this former conservative cabinet minister calling out Doug Ford on this absurdity of dollar for dollar tariffs.
You know, why should we necessarily punish Canadian consumers because Donald Trump is hell-bent on punishing American consumers? So let's think about that. And whether or not reciprocal tariffs on Canadian consumers is going to have a consequence hasn't really had much so far. So I'm increasingly of the view of let Donald Trump punish the American economy as much as he wants. Let's protect Canadian workers who are impacted by those tariffs. Let's beat down internal barriers to trade to get maximum economic benefit. Let's blow open doors to international markets to get some more economic benefit from there. And maybe let's just ride out, see if we can, as much as we can, ride out the Trump tariffs while we can and see if we can mitigate that as best as we possible through global and internal markets and not punish Canadian consumers. I mean, the idea, frankly, that you're going to have, you know, dollar for dollar reciprocal tariffs in the auto sector, for example, well, Canadians better start really liking RAV4s and Silverados because there's not many other car brands and choices you're going to have in Canada, right? So, so it's a really important conversation about what we're going to do and what's most effective and whether or not we want to punish Canadian consumers in an ineffective way just to act tough with no real benefit.
And I 100% agree. Anyway, I'd like to know what you think down in the comments section below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and thank you very much for watching.